that's right. Hey guys, thanks for coming down to the Bear Member Club again. It's been a long time since we've had an event here. So it's good to see everybody who showed up and everybody that's going to be online.
Thanks for all the free beer, guys.
Hell yeah. I just got that new credit card from West Coast. Anyhow, it's great to have James here today. Talking about XRedRocks and the X-Pyr, and hopefully it's a little bit of what we're planning to do in the X-Alps. Man needs no introduction. We all know him and love him. Here's James Elliot.
Thanks, Greg. I hope everybody loves it. But can't win long. I'm super stoked to be here. This is actually the first in-person social we've done since the pandemic. I've ended our lives. I worked for many years at the past few years. So, thrilled to be here and stoked that we could get the club back together and get a little bit of momentum here again. So that's a great thing. This event is being live streamed, right? That's up and running. So, is there any some questions wise? I guess if anybody has any questions watching online, just drop into the chat.
It's good to talk louder.
Louder. Okay, louder.
Sorry.
Light on this because it's too dark.
Stand up just a bit on the screen there.
There we go. It even makes it worse. Too much contrast. We could turn a little bit. You don't miss much if you don't shave your stuff. No. At least you shave. That's right. I did. See if we can get some. Sorry. I gotta grow a beard, man. This is the best I got. Yeah, that's better. All right, perfect. A bit better?
Yeah.
They can see your arm.
Yeah.
Your arm. This one? Yeah.
Perfect.
There we go.
Good.
Yeah.
No, there's just one more sound.
So the talk I'm going to give tonight is basically, it's about my biggest passion in life. Big disclaimer there, aside from my family. Paragliding, specifically hike and fly racing. It's this crazy, crazy sport, and then when you layer hike and fly racing on top of paragliding, it becomes even that much more crazier. So lots of stories to share. Lots of highs and lows through the racing and the competitions that I've done. So it's really in an hour or so, just scratch the surface, but hopefully I'll be able to get a little bit of excitement to some of the experiences I've had over the last few years in the X-Pyr and the XRedRocks, and then soon to be the X-Alps coming up. So really looking forward to that. If anybody has any questions, please just shout them out. I don't want to be the only one talking here all the time. So just let me know. Let's get right into it. A bit of my background and experience. I've always been fascinated by flying since I was a kid.
It's very hard to hear.
I used to climb trees, fly model airplanes, and I got my pilot's license when I was a teenager. And I just always loved flying. But it wasn't until I got into paragliding a bit over a decade ago that I thought.
Sorry, James, let's stop 1 second. Can you get closer here and talk closer to the microphone? Maybe?
Is the mic in here?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Does it have a longer lead?
And you can sit down on a chair so you are in?
Sure.
Yeah, but...
Yeah. You moved the camera.
There we go.
Oh.
A little higher.
I knew I'd moved something, but that might work.
There we go. Yeah, over there. There you go. Yep.
Try there.
Can I move?
Try there.
Up close and personal with James Elliot.
Perfect. There we go. It's a good thing I did shave. Some powder makeup. There we go. Yeah. So flying in general has just always been a big part of my life.
You have to talk to this.
Come on, moving, James.
Speaking of microphone. Okay.
And people say that is better. Thank you.
It's better. Okay. Okay. Perfect. So flying has always been a big part of my life, and it wasn't really until I discovered paragliding that I found that I really found my calling, and I do a lot of flying just around here locally, as most of you know, Pemberton, Fraser Valley. I've learned a lot over the years, done some traveling. The top left is where I did a lot of flying in Monte Cortisolo. That's the foothills of the Alps in Italy.
Is that where you actually did your first paragliding, James? Was Italy?
Spain. So I did my training in Alvedinales in Algo, Spain. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And then there was a couple of years, and I spent some time in Italy. And now the Pyrenees, and I try to get down to Mexico as much as I can for flying down there. But I've been learning a little bit every day. Basically, every day we go flying, I always learn something new. So it's been a slow and steady progression. Probably slower than it should be in many ways over the last decade and a bit. But yeah, learn something new every day. So it's been a blast. Specifically getting into the X-Pyr for hike and fly racing. There's some stuff I got to cover with my progression background-wise in terms of training. That's physical training and flight training. So on the physical side, I've always been very into exercise, fitness, hiking, and working out. But it wasn't until I got into hike and fly racing seriously that it became really a big part of my life.
Didn't you do a lot of hiking with lead?
Yes, yeah.
You've done a lot of hiking with heavy metal on board.
Heavy metal, and even now I'm training. A lot of my hiking is on the sandbags. It sucks. You go from ultralight paragliding gear to putting sandbags in your backpack, and it's really strange. I wouldn't recommend it. Very counterintuitive. So on the physical side of things, when I got serious in the hike and fly training, I got serious into endurance training, and that required a lot of changing what I used to do physically. So that, starting with the XRedRocks in 2021, there was about a year of training for that, and that was a lot of momentum that I just carried into training for the X-Pyr, which worked out pretty well. Going back to a little bit of the history of the X-Pyr, let's find a reference on the notes here. Yes, the history of the X-Pyr. So this race has been going on for about 10 years now. It spans the entire Pyrenees Mountains from the Atlantic side, the Honduras, Spain, to the Mediterranean side, according to Salva here, it's Mark Santa Maria. It's about 440 kilometers across the Pyrenees Mountains. And this is billed as a race by pilots for pilots. So it's a little bit more lenient with some of the rules than, say, the X-Alps would be. But it's still a very long ways, and it's very challenging. Definitely second after the X-Alps in terms of difficulty, team selection, and how many people finish. It's a grueling race. This year's edition was 605 kilometers in total across 8 turn points, and the challenging part was different than previous years. Was that this one crossed the main ridge of the Pyrenees twice. So you had to cross into France on the north side, the blue side, and then you had to cross back into Spain. So it was really challenging compared to previous editions, which just basically went straight across. We'll get into the route a little bit more in detail in a moment, but weather-wise, for the race itself, the Pyrenees are notoriously very windy. I think that it's not probably the best place to have a hiking race. In retrospect. Will I do it again? We'll see. But what happens is that you can have a 2,000 meter AGL base on the south side, on the Spanish side, and it can be 400 meters AGL cloud base and raining in France. And we're talking about a distance of about 10 or 15 kilometers where it's a different world when it comes to flying. It's really a struggle when you're on the north side, which there's a big section which is on the north side for this edition. So yeah, weather's tough. A little bit about my team. So when I was accepted into the X-Pyr and got the notice, I had no plan to have a supporter. I didn't know how I was going to convince someone to be a supporter. I reached out to Alex at one point, and he knew better. And so I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I happened to be invited abroad in Mexico when I got this notice, and I was sitting with Jonathan Klima, and he basically said right away, "Yeah, I'll be your supporter, and whatever you need, I'll do it." And I also happen to be in Europe anyways, so I don't need to have a flight ticket paid for, which I thought was good. And so that was one supporter, sorted out really well. I wanted 2 supporters for this race, just to make logistics a little bit easier. But I still didn't know who my second supporter was going to be until David Timichuk from Pemberton reached out and basically said, "I'm planning on being in Europe anyways. I'm on a 1-year hiatus. I have a van, and I'd be stoked to participate." So the team literally came together that easily. It was really, really awesome. So it was really, it was a really organic team. It was working really well. You would say a few words for the team. Yeah, good question. So, support team basically in hike and fly racing, you want to be carrying as absolutely little as possible, and your support team does everything else. And their job in reality is basically as difficult, in some ways more difficult than the participant. They have to deal with driving a support vehicle, they have to deal with food, they have to deal with planning, they have to deal with logistics. So my team, Dave was the chef extraordinaire and driver, and he did an absolutely amazing job. And Jonathan was handling things like race strategy, navigation, logistics, keeping an eye on other competitors, what they're doing, and moral support, which I needed a lot of pampering, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's a big ask to be a supporter. It's a lot of work.
How many people do you have in your team?
So for this, it was 2. And some of the professional level hike and fly teams have 5, 6 people. Some people do it with 1. It's really up to the individual team. And
some of the teams actually have 2 vehicles in the X-Pyr as well?
I think a couple did, but not many. It was pretty much.
Some of the X-Alps team had 2 vehicles.
Oh yeah, a lot of the X-Alps teams have
5 people in 2 vehicles.
Yeah, exactly. You have a camper and then some other.
Do either of those guys get to win dummy for you? I know, like Gushelbauer, for example, always has 4 guys hiking with him, 2 guys watch.
Yeah. And even in the X-Pyr, there were many times I was passing people, or they were passing me, and they would have 2 supporters, carry the camelback with the straw going into the competitor's mouth. And
That's
depending
not
on
fair.
the situation, I wasn't always there with the supporters. So it was, you have a minimum equipment list that the athlete has to carry, which is like your helmet, reserve, glider, tracking devices, and all your basic stuff. But anything outside that, you don't need. So your supporters carry all that stuff.
Having someone hike with you is a huge advantage, and you wouldn't have had that much.
Yeah. There was a few times we'll actually see some funny videos where Jonathan was complaining a little bit, but it's a big advantage. Yeah. So having a couple supporters. So that's a little bit about the background of the X-Pyr. The team flying question was good because there are rules. You're not allowed to team fly. You can't launch after your supporter and follow them through thermals and stuff like that. but your supporter can launch in front of you and fly to the ground, and you can kind of see whether or not the day's on.
So it's like you can have a wind dummy, but you can't have a team in flight.
Yeah. Team flying is penalized. Yes, for sure. Cloud flying is penalized. So the X-Pyr being a race, by all pilot volunteers. It's not like the corporate event like the X-Alps. It's all volunteers. Most of them come within the pilot community, and I think that they're a little bit more lenient towards competitors versus the X-Alps maybe who says, like, okay, you probably were in this airspace by 10 centimeters, so you get a 24-hour. So I didn't run into that, thankfully, with the X-Pyr, but I think they give in most cases, they're going to give the competitor kind of. So getting into the routes itself specifically, it's long, very long. The first turn point is 4 times longer than the X-Alps. Start in on the development. It's 23 kilometer from there, it's about 4 kilometers to the cruise.
He needs to turn it down.
Is that too loud?
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Thank you.
And then, so you cross from Goose, you go to the south to Penny Montesina, and then back up to the north. This is on the France side to Armas, and you backtrack towards the west, and you go to Pic du Midi, which is, I think, one of the highest peaks in the Pyrenees. You had to fly across back. Yep, or fly, ideally fly. Yeah. And
Were any of these ones you had to touch on the ground, or were they all ones you could do in flight and keep going?
All of them you could do in the air. Yeah, that was not okay. I tagged one in the air. Yeah, Kriegel tagged a couple in the air, but for the most part, the weather was so bad. You weren't.
Especially the French side ones, they were their definite tagging them.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly.
Is that an unusual weather year, or is that a normal weather?
It was definitely better prior. Yeah, definitely better. The year before, all my track log studying was all flying. A lot of it. And then I was walking through all the areas that I had some of the track logs in terms of how
So let me get this straight. If you come up short on the first day, you have to hike up to the first wall. Yeah. Is there designated launch sites that you have to go
anywhere here. Yeah, literally wherever you want, wherever you can.
That's why we don't do it with the hang glider.
You know, little wheels on the back.
Yeah.
That might be an opportunity for hang gliding. You might be onto something there.
colorful bit. So just laying on top of the mountain.
There you go, you just fly on the wall and just fly to So,
Paul Bibby did start with hang gliders with Didier Fabre.
really?
France, yeah, there's a guy,
Cap 444.
Cap 44, that was very famous.
Read up to Cap 111.
Yeah. He flew all through the Alps in a hang glider, and he would occasionally land at the bottom, and he would leave the wheels on his hang glider and walk the darn thing to the launch.
Read on, keep going.
I should say,
Stay in the middle, stay in the shepherd.
hike and fly hang glider racer would be definitely in better shape than a hike and fly racer. Yeah. So, what we're going to see coming up pretty soon is a bunch of day-to-day race videos that John and Finn put together. Well, that was his other job. It was social media and probably a lot of its race. But just as an overview, like synopsis before, day one after the run to Maroon, it was basically a death glide, very short. But from there, the pack kind of split into a northern route and a southern route, both led by Perez Kriegel up front here, and then Maxime Pino down south. So I opted for the more southern route right there. And this is basically the end of day one. It was brutal weather. It was alternating between very cloudy and raining, a ton of ground pounding, and yeah, I was pretty bagged by the end, which you'll see.
How many kilometers?
About
80 km.
79 and a half. Yeah. The majority of which was on the ground.
So 2 marathons on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one flight was maybe 4 kilometers, the other one was 5. So 70 something. Yeah, 70
So
something.
I can go to the motel and get right back where you are.
I was just looking for a motel with a hot tub. That's all. No, set up the van, camper. Yeah. So one of the race rules was that where you ended at 10 p.m. at night, you could not leave 150 meter radius from that area. So you're stuck in the area. I can't believe it. Oh, you don't know, but your supporters do. So here's day one. That was your
What's the big one?
You get it
It's about 100 meters, 23 kilometers, and 200 more to go. Good luck, man. 6 kilometers. Good luck, man. We're going down, buddy. Team Canada.
It's 800 meters, 18 kilometers to the base of this hill. Full running, full tilt running. And then 880 something meter elevation.
Wow. It's like a tunnel.
It sucks.
Grind it out.
25 degrees.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of being overcast. That does not look like flyable weather. I like the 495.
Across the road, heading way up inside. It's really not good. Bit of a death flight.
I gotta work on my fast packing here, apparently.
It's like 28 seconds or something.
Oh, yeah. I'm fiddling with a zipper.
Are you able to get any help packing or anything like that, or do you have to do it on your own?
You can. Yeah. I was trying to convince Jonathan if you're still looking. I was like, back my way, back my way.
You're still at that end. Get it right now.
The
How are you
corpse.
feeling at the end of day 1 of 7? 78. 78 and a half? Oh, yeah, pretty good. Yeah, super thrilled with the performance. A lot of work.
It's nuts.
I'm being supportive.
Definitely learned a lot for sure. The other days were a lot easier. Not the stressful, the stressful moments that we had. It's like, oh man, definitely learned a lot.
Sores on your leg. That's just dirt. Yeah, so so.
Yes, I like it. Those guys are cheating right now.
Yeah. So, need to eat.
So that was day one.
Did you guys have a time that you had to stop moving by?
Yeah, 9.
9 to when?
9 till 7. So that's one of the other ways the X-Pyr is a lot more generous than the X-Alps. It's that the rest period is way longer.
Have they changed that for the X-Alps for this year? They showed you the rules?
But technically, it's 10 p.m. to 1:30.
And they're not, and that is the current rules for 2023?
Yeah, there's some noise within the athletes to try to extend it.
Yeah.
But they've tried that in the past. That's good. So yeah, right now it's 10 to 1:30.
What's the objection to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most extreme adventure races in the world.
They're just trying to keep it harder.
Yeah, they just want to. Yeah, they want to keep as hard as possible. Yeah, so we have much longer rest periods than the next week. So this is day one flights, and this is kind of where there was a bit of a paradigm shift for me because going into the race before it started, I had no idea where I was going to stand, how well I was going to perform against these professional teams and other amateurs and rookies in there. But as soon as I started flying, I saw that other teams weren't really working as well, and the pilots weren't pushing, they weren't fighting for the extra meter of distance. And I could see people would be gliding and they'd see a landing field and they would land short. And I was just like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to optimize absolutely everything. And these flights are funny because they're pretty much straight lines directly into the ground. And I don't think any of these flights during the X-Pyr I turned once at all. I would just pick a field, and if I cleared treetops by 6 inches, that was 6 inches, more than I needed in my life. So you need to maintain a bit of a risk, buffer. But I was wanting to go hard. And, my performance on the first day was that paradigm shift. I saw all of a sudden how I was competing against, performing against other athletes. So it was pretty cool. And I was able to know exactly where I wanted to land, which was right along the course, the best road, right along course line, typically. So there's so many areas you can optimize, and I saw that I was doing that, and Jonathan and Dave were doing that, and we were working well as a team, and other teams weren't doing that as well as I thought they could do. So that's when I thought, okay, I think I can do okay. So it's full on racing. So that was pretty good. Going on to day 2, the weather was even worse than day 1. It was raining, full-on rain for the good majority of it. I managed 3 short flights. The worst case scenario I achieved, which was tagging a Coos the second main turn point on the second day. And it was, just a whole bunch of ground pounding. The rain caused some interesting situations, mostly around launching and landing. On the 3 short flights, one of them was from a Coos, the turn point up on the hill, and I had to launch out of this field full of waist-high ferns in light drizzle, which immediately turned to rain as soon as I launched. And as everybody knows, flying a paraglider in the rain is not fun, especially in hard rain. So after a couple minutes, it starts getting really funny, and basically I could only keep it open and feeling solid by flying everywhere on third bar. So it was just a straight glide, but there's no way I was walking down that mountain. And I managed to pass a few other, sponsored teams and pro teams doing this, so it worked out really well. But at the end of this glide, again, with my theory of just gliding straight into the ground and not turning it bad, to maximize distance, I flew through this little canyon and with a tailwind, soaking wet glider, third bar, And my rule was, as I'm flying, like, hey, I don't touch brakes, don't touch brakes, don't touch brakes. Flying on these, and through this little gully, of course, the wind accelerated, and I'm looking for landing options now. And I'm like, okay, well, tailwind, I can't go off less than third bar. Soaking rain, or soaking wet body. So looking for landing options, I can land at 50 kilometers an hour in a tufty field, or touchdown on some nice smooth pavement on the road. So I went for the road option, and it actually worked really well. I could see there was a corner, as you'll see in a sec, but there's a corner I can see a little bit distance, so I knew there's no traffic coming. But it's a good landing slide out that was a lot of fun. And skiing along the road, touching down, doing that like the snowboard skiing for a little while. But again, I managed to pass a couple teams, and I guess that means it was good. So, video day 2. We're on the north side of the foothills of the Pyrenees. Cloud base is fog. It's ground level basically. My glider bag is now become see-through. It's so wet.
Warming up the banner yet?
Yeah, well, this man, quick this off. It is. Is it wet? It's soaking wet. It's raining. And I'll take care of you now.
You want to hike in sandals?
Somebody said about the stinky van. Dave and Jonathan had to have my shoes under the dryer, which were full blast, windows rolled up in the camper. Every hour I was swapping them out. I had like 5 pairs of shoes, and they always had a wet pair of shoes to try. This is why they're the best supporters in the world. It didn't get dry. It didn't really dry. I opened it up when I could, but it was,
Yeah, close to 60, yeah.
You'll notice I'm carrying my phone in a Ziploc bag. So the phone itself is waterproof, but the charging port isn't. So I ran into this problem where water was getting into the charging port and I couldn't charge my phone. So we had to get this little Ziploc baggy thing. And I'm navigating, it's everything, it's on that phone. I have to have it. So, yeah, my phone spent most of the first couple days in this Ziploc bag. It was so wet.
So this is a wet glider?
This is a pretty wet glider. Yeah. Not as wet as you'll go to see, but it's still flew remarkably okay. I was always sweating, but as soon as you stop, it's cold.
He's flying his glider right now.
Yeah.
I went through some rain. So this is going. Somebody here decided that was a bad idea and turned around. And I went straight. This is the yard.
Look at all this.
Oh yeah, I'm not touching the brakes either. It's like that until the last second. It doesn't look like much, but I touched it on
David Bates told me about this last summer.
And here comes a truck.
And then there was a semi-truck.
James, what kind of food were you eating? Like, in the morning and in the evening?
Okay.
In the beginning, solid food, in the end, just soup. That's all Elliot something.
Raining.
Energy gels and some protein bars.
Jonathan wasn't cooking for you?
I did 2 very
It was.
distance yesterday.
I couldn't eat solid foods very much during the day. Dinner and breakfast was really huge solid meals, but during the day it was just all protein bars.
3, 4.
4 flights. This last landing was quite exciting, actually. With the extremely wet burn field, my wind raised usually 3.5 kilos. I think it's operational right now. And we were going to keep it controlled and basically with downwinds, quarter bar landing on the road. So real close that one. It was pretty exciting. Otherwise, feeling pretty good. And
You don't want to post it? Too late now.
I wasn't sure if we should or not, but the race organization ended up using it in some of the. Some of
They
the
do.
Your pack is not too far ahead still.
Team Canada. What place are we in? 12?
I think 12.
All right.
Amazing.
Team Canada.
That rain was always. So day 3, much better. For those of us that managed to get to the south side of the race, so which is where the field really began to separate a lot. After tagging the acute turn point, which is it's hard to see here, but there's a big sign right there. I finished the day just a bit south of that. Pino and Friedel can't see me, but they're there. Timalongi, Tangay, Remy, we're kind of all spread through this valley here, avoiding this national park airspace that we couldn't fly through. So up to this point, the competition was really favored people with a good ground game, people who were physically dominant, and who could make decent navigational calls, but it was just a bunch of ground boundary. There wasn't really options you could take for routes. Some flights you could optimize a bit here and there, but day 3, really the pack started to supplement. So,
How are you communicating with your ground team? Radio or
Smoke
phone?
signals.
Yeah,
Not that way.
a bit of WhatsApp, but mostly the app called Zello, which is basically if it has a connection, it'll send a message like a walkie-talkie, but if it doesn't, it'll store it and it sends it as soon as you get it.
And you can do this. Thank you.
Oh, you're making sun.
Sun.
That must have felt good. Are you just trying to get positioned for a flight this morning now?
Yeah, so the lead pack, there's a couple different options, but the lead pack, there's really just a matter of trying to get in the air. So this is where the launch was from.
Where is the wind from there?
Everywhere. This was a really gnarly spot. Actually. So right along this ridge line is a line of airspace that we couldn't go into. And the day before, I haven't mentioned this yet, I lost my XE tracer. One of the landings, it popped off and the lanyard tore, and so I didn't have an XE tracer. So I was borrowed Jonathan's, and when I configured it to my phone, I hit use external GPS, and it created a habit. As soon as I launched, for some reason, I had no GPS, so I couldn't tell where this airspace was along the ridge. But I had to hug that ridge as much as I could, fighting for every meter of altitude to try to get up. So it was actually a little bit terrifying because I thought I was going to get an airspace violation. I think I got really close until Jonathan was monitoring my live tracking, and through the Zello app said, "Do not go 10 meters more to the north. You're going to be in airspace." And I knew it was around. I didn't think it was that close, but I didn't have GPS, and I'm trying to mess around on my phone trying to figure this out. And it was a nightmare. But if Jonathan wasn't watching the live tracking, and I probably would have drifted into this airspace. So it was, huge saving. Huge saving. And this is where having a paraglider pilot has supported makes a huge difference. Poor God, did I made run around so much. That time I forgot my B2, but at this point I didn't know that I didn't have GPS. So it seemed easy to have
España.
2,900 meters.
What is this? The same, the third day?
It was the third day. I was very happy to be not walking.
Yes. You didn't see it. Happy happening.
So this is on the south side, and it's these kind of flying conditions. But on the north side, I mean, France was still crappy. Everybody was still walking.
So big transition, about 45 kilometers south of turn point 3.
Why did you choose the northern route?
Why did you
choose the northern route?
They converged in the same area, but I thought that the terrain was a bit better for a couple short flights, even though it was kind of bad weather. In reality, it wouldn't make much.
But weather-wise, I'm not worried.
They were both terrible. Two bad choices. You know. So the flying here, this is still on the Spanish side, the south side of the main ridge. And you get these amazing high bays. This is the transition across the ridge, flying into France. There's multiple stable layers of clouds. Within a distance of a couple kilometers, you go from booming 6 meter a second thermals into nothing. And it's literally like flying into a different world.
Flying in here is absolutely crazy. Even on a good weather day, these valley systems are intense. There's a lot of wind, it squeezes through. I don't even call valleys and canyons. But yeah, we had a long way. I'm only about 24.5 kilometers from us, which is nice. So 40 stops. For the night, Jonathan and Dave are on right here. This equipment in the morning, I have to hike up there, and we're going to camp here for the night. Beautiful scenery. You can imagine it's big indoors.
How many kilometers do you need to fly that day?
So that day, it was 132.
That was good.
5 or something like that.
After all the
Yeah,
walking.
it was. I was thrilled to be in the air. Yeah, absolutely. And this day, so by the end of the day, this is kind of where everybody wound up. Pino and Miguel managed to tag turn point 4, and then did a little bit of flying along that northern leg, kind of back west. Wind conditions that were still flyable for them. I do not know how they were still flying. I was a couple hours behind them, but it was stable. There was nothing going on, but they were still flying. So it's just absolutely mind-boggling. Yeah, that was 134. There were a lot of pilots who bombed out. I remember flying alongside a Nova team pilot who I watched just get lower and lower and lower and glide, and then he turned behind. I was like, and it really spread out the field. So this trying to make up this kind of distance on the ground, even though it's 134 kilometers flying, if you're taking roads going over mountains through valleys, it's probably about 50% that at least. And if you do not fully optimize a good flying day, it's very, very difficult.
So you did 134 kilometers in the day?
Yeah.
Third day?
Third day. That was only good flying day. So,
Plus some kilometers on the ground to begin with.
plus some kilometers on the ground. Yes.
Did you land fairly close to where you camped, or did you have to do a bit of walk?
I only walked a little bit. So on this day, I landed at about 7:30, just after 8 o'clock. I guess by the time I packed up and walked a bit, I wanted to launch from the next ridge. I could have hiked up there, but I would have had to camp up high. So I stopped actually on this day about, I think it was like 25 to 30 minutes early. And, I gave up that time, but at the same time, Jonathan would have to come up and hike up that view. So that was a bit of a sacrifice, but not that big in the grand scheme of things. On day 4 is when I kind of got bogged down unnecessarily. I did basically just a bunch of ridge hopping. Biggest mistake of the race for me was I somehow managed to forget my GPS tracker in the van at a rendezvous point. So I had started hiking up the hill, and Jonathan and Dave were then driving down the mountain, and they're looking at the live track and say, James is flying right above us. And I'm hiking up the mountain, and they're like, wait a minute, we have James's GPS tracker in the van somewhere.
It looks like you're leading the pack.
I guess this is where it says XRedRocks.
Yeah, so I'm right down here. So this is the turn point, and then the lead pack is starting to make it back west. So there's the other, that's Pick Committee turn point.
Is this the beginning of the day, or what is this?
This is going to be, this is the end of the day. So it actually took me a long time. On day 4, I thought it was going to be more flyable than it was, so I tried to make a few flights work, when in reality I should have just continued to hop and make the distance.
What's your place there?
This, I think I'm 12th maybe, yeah.
Have Maurer and Pino already come back from that turn point that day? Or
So-
did they get bogged down and stayed that way?
Kriegel and Maurer actually, so this is actually, so Kriegel and Pino, they tend to turn point. I'll double check that.
Yeah, we can say it as we go.
Yeah, so day 4, it's, I felt pretty good after a day of flying versus 4 marathons in the first 2 days.
What was that plan again? Like 20 minutes?
Yes.
So the plan is to, you're here, I got this ridge right here. 20 meters, so we should go be up in 10 minutes.
I wish.
The camera works, like you just do it, I can allow you, for which shot?
This is all Jonathan. GoPro and
Yeah, backside. Great. Where Jonathan is taking the lead, thank God. And I got another couple hundred, 600 meters to go. That way.
I couldn't imagine a better terrain for hiking fly racing. It's, most of the mountains are like this. They're outlying pastures.
Did you study all of the area quite thoroughly before the race? Like where would you go hiking?
I did, but I flew through all the areas I was planning on walking through. And then I walked through all the areas I planned on
Okay.
basically. So a lot of it was just dead reckoning, plans to. The day was quite stable, so I thought I could launch and start flying, but it was basically launch, fly back ridge, hike up, launch, fly to the next ridge, hike up, and just.
But still better than going to the valley.
Yeah.
Not much landing options down in the valley. Yeah. That's Jonathan.
That's Jonathan, and I'm like, yeah, it's not working yet. So I think I gave it another 20 minutes, and I was like, okay, maybe it'll be working by the time I'm on the next range.
So did you have a weather forecast like last
Days
time?
not quite on yet.
First, yes. It was up, opportunity. That nice mustache beard.
Yeah.
Stash. Sunscreen stash.
We were on that wall, so better. Right. Side hill landed, I can back up.
So these videos actually, they get to be quite long, so I'll just kind of shorten some of them here. But this is where, so day 5, this is how it started. Again, more brutal walking in the rain for me. Day 5 was pouring down on the French side. I had tags 0.4, R-box level 4, almost made it to 0.5, 58. I was in a good position for flying on day 6. But there was a lot more excitement at the front of the race, so 3-gallon Maxime managed to get some good flying on that day once they're on the south side. And for everybody else, it was just a brutal sufferfest. So these guys, not only are they amazing pilots in the best shape, but they time it, and if you get an extra hour on one day and it's raining the next, you're an entire day. So it's really, you have to use every single day. So I'm taking a little bit of a break from the team videos. This one's from the X-Pyr base organization, just for some athlete perspectives.
The day fighting and it was a nice walk just behind Manitou, and then it was a complete nightmare to go down here. There we see I think no sliding.
The bars look a lot better weather-wise, so I'll be able to cover some distance and completely down to 2.6 and get on the better side of the communities for flying.
Always raining, like all the time. It's tough. It's really tough.
L'unico alberto non si vede nel todo il tipo sul litigando
Yeah, people talk about how hard this race is, but it's harder than that. This is like the hardest thing I've ever done.
This is kudos to you on the south side. There's so much sketchy flying.
All day walking like this. I hope you guys
This goes from Creed also.
They didn't make you stickerize your glider, did they?
No, not for that one.
They will for the next one.
400 grams of stickers is not going to be fun. So, on day 6, this was totally insane. So that's what Credo said. On day 5, on day 6, he basically flew into the He flew all the way. He did, I think it was 190 kilometers, so somewhere around here. He flew into through
And actually, Maxime Pinot got ahead of him and landed and landed almost at airspace. And Kriegel got stuck with Pierre Remy at a mountain and got launched a little later. Got up, came over Maxime Pinot's head, and won the race at the very last one, the very last ride.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible what he could do. Yeah. And it was very, very windy. Again, it was still, but it was a tailwind. So some of these pilots on the south side reported ground speeds over 100 kilometers. Heading east.
Get tall and punch it.
Pretty much.
Hitting the right way.
We got the Mediterranean coast on glide. Yeah, so that was the an hour at the front of the race. For the rest of us mortals, we were still battling in the periods on the north side of the ridge. And yeah, for me, I managed to tag Big Committee, that highest peak, and I flew to it actually. I got really lucky on this day. There was only about a 2-hour window of convective activity during the day. I managed to get myself into a position, use it, and then the day shut down. There was a sea of cloud essentially rolled in and completely shut everything down for anybody still on the flatlands on the north side of the Pyrenees. So it worked out really well for me. It bought me a big buffer time. I was exhausted by this time. I think there's a couple spots to see with my legs in there. But I wasn't moving very fast. So it's nice to have, this flight, get into a good position, and know that nobody else is stopping that. So a bit of striving for we're there. So I landed 2 kilometers short of the turn point at 50 meters, but that 2 kilometers was just straight vertical. I think it took me 2.5 hours of just hiking to get up to tag the turn point. And yeah, that was it was a tough one.
Sounds like pain.
It was a lot of pain. I'm not moving very fast.
2.5 today.
You'll see this guy again on my right. David Corbett. He's this guy. He's a Spanish. He's an ultra marathon runner.
He's not moving very fast.
Nobody was.
You also taking your bag in the shoulders sometimes.
Oh, everywhere. Yeah.
The range light across the Pyrenees Mountains.
I was going to say, you have a
Real bucket.
Everything was actually very popular.
So,
Most of my legs, so you'll see a video.
James, I mean, the whole race was quite exhausting, but do you think you could have trained more and then you would have been better?
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead. I trained hard, but some of these guys are ultra marathon runners. They have been for 10 years. My endurance training was, I went hard for a year and a half, 2 years. For that, I just did bicep curls in the gym.
So, do you think it was less exhausting for them than for you?
Everybody was suffering. Yeah. I think I did pretty well.
2.5.
That was your moment of like a little bit of flyability there?
Yeah, so this actually.
2.5 today. 5.
So that was, if you look at this, it's at about a 15-kilometer flight. I'm pointed straight at 50 meters, which is straight by cloud right And you can see there's bridge lift, but then it's capped. And there's a lot of wind up there, and there was kind of this high inversion, and you couldn't really look very high. So I was really lucky to snake my way just kind of up this valley just on the left side. And I basically squirted through this little ravine up into a canyon that was running up to Pictomini. And I remember bridge flying up this thing, and it was getting narrower and narrower and narrow. I'm like, I gotta land at some point. But every single meter I'm climbing, I don't have to hike. So I basically just squirted up this little canyon. It's still too gnarly to finally come down. You definitely want to fight for every meter like that. That's so
Non-stop hiking with this. Just 7
This is dog complaining.
Oh, I need this, I need that. Make it up to me. Make it up to me. So here we are. Hiking it up.
Really puts things into perspective when you see somebody hiking up some of this terrain. It's oh, so somebody found my exit tracer and returned it to me.
No.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that you?
Hi.
Some random person's like, hey, it's here.
Somebody plugged it in and they saw my name in a configuration file. And then they found my live track.
Just
That's amazing.
yeah, about 3.5 after
Comfortable?
about 15K.
It's a lovely picture.
Radius 3.5.
Modeling times.
That's right. That was a blue steel. So David Corbus had launched, he passed me at this point. He always passed me on the ground, I always passed him in the air. And he had launched and tried to get over all these mountains, but there was too stable. And he just basically was stuck and then landed at the base of this. And I had a huge flight, which was just fly. From here. This is when Claudia had taken a screenshot of the webcam of this and posted it in the chat. I don't know if you guys remember or saw that.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, this looks like James. And then this live was so long, I was like scrolling through my WhatsApp and saw her comment. I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm right here.
Yeah, that's just wild.
So high,
Wow.
That's awesome.
This is still day 6.
and
They have a compass.
so much heart,
That's pretty warm.
fire, so much heart. You gotta have
See this blue hole right here? That's where I'm going.
Now that you can see this house.
There was like a gentle tailwind, and my flight was 20. So you're not allowed to fly in clouds. So my plan B was to take out and land on one of these bridges over here if I needed to. But this blue hole just was perfect. Yeah, it worked out really well. And you see this, nobody's flying this stuff unless you're over top of it. It's fog, you're all the mountains.
You'll never find a way to
So-
fly.
So were there people that were stuffed in that couldn't get above it?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And everybody behind me, so I was kind of just the tail end of the lead pack. Everybody behind me, you know, you might be able to fly, but you're not flying.
So that was probably saved yourself a 40K walk there. Yeah.
Yeah. And David Corbus landed at the bottom and had to detour so far north to come back.
Oh, brutal.
I thought I had him when I was relaxing, but it's not the case.
I thought you went back and you there, yeah, this is the camping spot. I'm not going anywhere more. Look at those
Swollen ankles.
Ankles.
Yeah.
Hiking?
Yeah.
Okay.
By this point, I had done
Day 6.
about 300 kilometers.
Second last day.
So I think this is where my training, I'm doing some more different things now, where my training is specifically for avoiding cheese plants and just beating on my explore. So that
Do you put Band-Aid before you running?
I started, yeah. Not at the beginning, I probably should. Pressure, definitely, at all points.
Yeah.
Gavin talks about changing his diet to avoid swelling too.
Yeah, I'm
How
not
do you
into
change it?
I
That's
think he went very I think he went keto.
He went keto, but then he had to switch to race because he was like walking every day. I looked into it a little bit, but I don't want to mess with my diet. I know what works for me now. Just
I don't see anyone else going keto.
yeah, it's risky.
I think the swelling key is probably more of a training thing and less of a.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Do you have spare pair of shoes?
You're still there.
Oh, I had like 6 pairs of runners. Yeah.
Oh,
Tomorrow.
Yeah, stinky
Too
shoes.
bad.
Oh, it was so bad. I would get into the van sometimes, and I'd be like, "Oh my god!" And Jonathan and Dave were just sitting there. What? They were irritated by me. So that was my life, day 6. On the south side of your days again, was
Oh, yeah.
big flights were possible.
Is this the PRD one?
Yeah, and it was gnarly conditions.
Windy?
Windy. Yeah, it's a good thing we had a nice launch area for this one. Woo! Just cool to hear over there, isn't it? Yeah.
Hotel,
Day 6.
yeah, it looks really floppy when it's not.
Sorry, James, it's 6 or 7.
James. 6 or 7.
It's
This is 6. So this is Kriegel coming into goal on day 6.
This is the same day that you did your long glide over the clouds.
Yeah, and by this time now Kriegel has flown, I think, within a couple kilometers short of goal. Last 50K were through inverted sea breeze flatlands. It's impossible. That's what I should say.
This morning it was 190 kilometers. And normally the last part is difficult to fly before because the airspace.
Like flying to White Rock from Woodside.
And everything.
Literally, yeah. It's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Here and thinking
With less landings.
10% chance.
So he gave himself a 10% chance. He figured the start of day 6 was like 10% chance I'll make it to. And he did it.
It was 190 Ks.
190 days. Granted, huge tailwind, but yeah, it is absolutely astonishing. I would say impossible for anybody except for
He did this in the first time he was in the X-Alps. He flew to Monaco, and I think it was the first time someone had flown into the goal there, maybe. And I remember I was actually at that race, and Russell Ogden and Bruce Goldsmith, both world champions, showed up and shake his hand because they know the area because they test gliders there, and they were all like, "He flew into goal. It was fucking unbelievable." And they test gliders there, and they just shook his hand because they were like, "That's ridiculous. I would never even try flying into Monaco from where you did because it's like you're gonna crash into someone's limestone back garden the whole way."
Yeah, it's literally like sea breeze inverted flatlands, and somehow we managed to pull it off. So yeah, totally crazy.
So only the 4: Oberonner, Remy, And Pino and Kriegel made goal on this one, didn't they? Did they stop the goal a certain number of hours, or how did they do that?
Yeah, so it's the race now is just 7 days. So it's 7 days stop.
Okay.
And in the past, it used to be first one in the goal, then 24 hours starts, and then everybody else has to be in the goal at that time. Otherwise,
This was just stop.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was.
Oh, so Kriegel probably made dinner reservations. I will be there at this time in Swiss.
It's
It's kind of like you going to the sandpiper, right?
I think
Call it
his bones are
in
full of, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, keep in mind the guy who beat Pierre Remy there is a world champion, and it's his home area. He was a rookie, Pierre, and he did really, really well for a rookie, but he's also a world champion apparently.
Yeah. The big difference here, though, was that there's a airspace around goal. In the previous editions, they could not get permission to fly through. This was the first year they actually had permission to fly through. So I think the airspace starts, it's really low. Like, it's not enough to actually fly. Something like a couple hundred feet each year. So they actually have special permission, and that's how you're going to take it to fly through.
What's the distance to the goal?
Well, for Kriegel, when he started, I think his day 6 was around. So here's around 190 into the way.
And you, from where you are there, you've got one more turn point down there to get to?
Yeah, so so I'm up here, I'm like lead of the, basically the Royals. And I'm still struggling on trying to get over the main ridge.
Right.
As soon as you're over that main ridge, it's flyable. If you're 2 kilometers on the backside of it, it's just you can't. So I'm struggling trying to get over that main ridge. And Lars, another ultramarathon guy, he had burned through here on day 6 when I had that big fight off with committee. And he was able to bridge hop essentially all those gnarly mountains and make some serious distance. So he had a great flight along here. This is basically I think the end of day 7 because Simon and Pierre are going to go now. Pino will move into go now. And, yeah, but for me, day 7 was another day of short hikes, short flights, in mostly unflyable conditions. So I was pretty suffering a lot by this point.
So this is the start, what you know is the last day.
Yeah, this is the last day. I almost actually piled into the hill I just watched for the next one. Jonathan was nice and edited it out. Yeah. So I see I banged really hard there. He edited out the part where I almost piled into the hill. This I lost track. So this was a pretty early morning flight. It was just a series of hiking up, flying, gliding as far as I could. Hiking up, gliding.
Did Mom want to finish on day 6?
Oh yeah, he's having an espresso right now.
Heat massage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll get you tender, actually.
What's that?
I'll get you tender for the first couple of days after the race.
So day 6 was quite flyable, so you could fly 190, and day
On the
7
south
was
side, yeah.
Yeah, both days were actually flyable if we were on the south side. Wicked windy, but doable. There's tailwind, so. Yeah, it's amazing the difference that only 3 kilometers if you're on the south side of that bridge.
So this is flight number 2 on 7, day 7 point?
Yeah, so I said that was the last flight, possibly the expert, it was not. I thought I could climb out somewhere around here and get over the ridge. As soon as I got into that valley, I got hammered by a wind spilling over the ridge. And I was on the ground within about 2 minutes. So by this time, David Corpus, I passed him in the air, and he was. I was certain that I had 10th place secured.
My God.
I'm so confident of 10th place and secured that I'm stopping and having ice cream and racing games. This is, yeah.
And did you finish 10th?
We're going to take it away from you and take classes here.
So, jumping ahead of this, David Corpus is, we nicknamed him the Corpse because he is essentially a zombie that you cannot get away from. It's a slow motion, just bad dream that keeps on coming. And this is him. He's, by this point, I was doing 5 kilometers an hour, and he was still doing 11. And it was only a couple hours left in the race. Last evening at only about 7 p.m. And he brought up to me.
It's so personal too. He's like making eye contact and everything. It's not like he flew over you or something.
Is he trash talking you?
He was waiting. We were watching his live tracking. He was waiting, and if I went right, he would go right. I went left, he would go left. Yeah, it was awesome dude. Yeah, that was it. That was my 10th place. Just kick him in the nuts, bro. Yes, sir. Happy 7 days. That's
So now that I get riding,
right. That fucking ice cream. That was as fast as I could go. That was about it. You're still flying.
You can tell
No problem.
lots of
It's like
gas.
nice.
Crap.
This was David's supporter. But David was on day 3 when I had a 130-kilometer flight. I think he bombed out like twice. He still caught me. He was a monster.
Benoit Lear's is like next monster.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is. My calves. I lost a toenail by this point. That was the only real lasting damage. It just grew back.
What's up with
I was asking the same question.
Hike to a field of sweet nettles.
Yes.
I'm only allowed one official support. But both of them, I mean, I couldn't have done it, without, they were both amazing. And they put up with a lot of shit. So, that was the end of the race, day 7. This is the next day of the award ceremony. Peter Remy, yeah, like Alex said, world champion. He was third place. Matthew Puno, second place. And obviously first place. That was the X-Pyr.
Woo! Awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah, like if you guys don't know, like that's a huge achievement. Like it's not just that it's that hard, but even to be allowed in, it's really impressive. Like as a North American, you have a massive disadvantage at the very beginning because it's so much harder for you and your supporters and not speaking the language. So that was incredible effort.
I'm super happy with how we performed. Like, going into this race, like I said, I had no idea how well we were going to do. I didn't know if I was going to be dead last or do okay.
Yeah.
And that was.
Look at all the people who've done like X-Pyrs and X-Alps before that you beat. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, and everybody kind of there was 30. What was it? Last one's out, so it's out of 45 teams, 31 or 14 had to quit for injury or whatever reason. So yeah, it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Was the X-Pyr, I can't remember, was the X-Pyr eliminating people like the Axeman? No, it's just
no, people were just eliminating themselves.
Right.
Which there was no shortage of. It's even worse. So that was X-Pyr. I'm just gonna quickly talk a little bit about the XRedRocks and the X-Alps coming up. The XRedRocks is a really, really cool hike and fly race. With Gavin McClurg started down in Utah. The second edition was last year. And if anybody's interested in hike and fly, I really suggest check it out. Utah's a really cool place to fly. This year, or 2022, sorry, was a really good competitive year in the pro category. And it's a much more accessible race in the sense that it's staged. So each day, you're starting with everybody else. So it's a new task every day, and the second task for the weather. And then that means that you're competing in the same general location. You don't need supporters. Logistically, it's so much easier. It's so much less expensive. It's a lot. Yeah, it's just an absolute blast. And Utah is a quick flight from. It's 2023 registration's open. It's a blast. So. And it's only 3 days, so it's not a huge commitment to.
And they've got the 2 categories, or even 3 next year.
I think it's 3 now. So they have like a beginner, very beginner, and then like intermediate, and a pro category.
Suffering.
Yes.
Lots of suffering. Limited suffering.
Yeah, I would say like the basic level is like, a little bit of suffering, but definitely lots of suffering. So. And this was actually one of the highlights of my hike and fly career, even outside of being an X-Pyr, because on the last day of 2022, I managed to come into the first out of 43 or something teams, ahead of Aaron Brigatti, ahead-ish. Technically we tied, but I was in goal first. He helped somebody who was injured, and he had a 30-minute time credit. I'll still take it, but it was really really cool. It was just a little clip of the last part of that race. So the last day, there was a vicious 40-50 km/h headwind. I decided just to run 21 kilometers to the south and just managed to fly down super well.
Gains a crucial 30 minutes of ride. It might not matter.
This race is even more great because Gavin needs you with the beer. Before you even get the
That's a good man. That's a good man.
You have the best supporters
That's a
ever.
great support. Get your beer before you feed it to them. That's why I didn't cash my glider. I was going for the beer.
Should have been a crown. You get some sponsorship.
This is 30 minutes on route
When he lands way out there and doesn't catch a deer, like time penalty. Like that's
You should get extra credit for
That's
the
still
beer.
impressive.
Yeah.
He's not help somebody and gets sacked.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, he's an absolute machine. Totally machine. That's you today.
Yes.
And this is the next one.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Oh shit.
Oh snap.
We got so 2023, a few months away. It's the X-Alps. My selection was announced in October, and right now I'm basically just deep in endurance training mode. Team-wise, Duncan Female is going to be supporting me for the 2012. And Dan Guerrero's and North Female, Canada. So, sorry.
Norm and Dan are coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And then there's going to be a couple other people on the ground, just kind of probably coming in and out for support along the way. Route announcement is in March. Right now, I'm not worried too much about the micro strategy planning, just mostly just endurance training. But after the route announcement in March, it's going to be a whole lot of route planning for me. Yeah, so between now and then, just building still sponsor support. Yeah, training.
Can you talk a little bit
4
about
hours to, well, 1.5 to 4 hours.
Can you talk a little bit about your route planning, like how you go about doing that if you're not there and
Yeah, it's really hard not being there on the ground. I can only get to Europe about a week before the race, the preparation week starts, so I don't really have much time to start. But then again, in the X-Pyr, I found that you can spend months route planning and in detail, but then the weather's bad that day, or you have to, or you're end up flying over a bunch of areas that you spent a week checking trails on. So I don't know if it's the most effective use of time for those of us who are not don't do this for a living. But a lot of it is just Google Earth, looking at where the route goes, what trails will get you to the turn point, and a lot of it's just done on the fly. When I'm actually flying, I'm going to be looking at where roads are going, updating each navigation point I'm doing, what's the best area to land in if I'm getting low.
are you looking at other people's past flights in the area? Trying to get an idea of
A
other past
little bit, but again, it's every day is so different.
Right.
You can have a track skyway highway through one area, but on the day that you're flying that can be totally shaded out and it looks better over here. Yeah, I mean, what I find is actually X contests. I love that the graphical interface, just elevation, gradient that they use for colors. And I can, the night before, I can look at that and say, okay, this is where the terrain is, this is what the weather forecast is. I think this way is going to work. That's going to be my plan A for the day, the next day typically, based on that weather forecast or where I am. But the other thing is that I never know where I'm going to wind up. So I mean, you can route plan for a year and still have to go out the window and then show up.
How do you do the weather forecasting?
So for the X-Pyr, actually, it was nice. So XD Skies had detailed forecasts that they were updating every single day, and they would send it to all participants. So we had that basically at fingertips. And for the X-Alps, it's just mostly an aggregate of a whole bunch of different sources. I would like to have like just a Canada graphs. Yeah, CT is always a place where it's just like to have some Canada graphs. I plan on relying on Dan. Dan, what's the weather going to get tomorrow? Obviously, I have to know that. What's that? A bit, yeah. And I obviously have to know, as much as I can for weather forecasting. But it's same as here. I mean, just try to scrape as much information as you can from the sources and then make all the day. So, what I think is going to be really important in the X-Alps is weather radar. The Alps can blow up and overdevelop and dump. And cells can form quickly and start raining. And if there's spots of rain, but if you have a clearing, being able to make a call whether or not you hike down the mountain and wait for an extra half hour because the rain's and stuff.
I noticed Medio Blue takes the radars from most countries, puts it together, and it also does a half hour in the future that it tries to guess what it's going to do.
Yeah, exactly. So
Cool.
Yeah, Medio Blue, and I think Medio Pyr uses some of that. Yeah, the Medio Blue one is good. But any ideas, send them my way because.
Yeah, and I think that video platform will do something that looks a little bit like a wind gram off grass.
Yeah. For certain area, I don't think it covers the whole. Yeah. There we go.
Cool. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Eddie.
For the X-Alps, my plan is to have a WhatsApp group, and then there's going to be a lot of daily, real time. The team will be communicating within that group to see what's going on, and there'll be daily updates and. John is going to get social media again, so
yeah, nice.
So thanks to your team.
Oh yeah, no, supporters like you can't do this without support. You can't. It's as hard, if not harder, than supporters. So it's huge.
Awesome.
Bravo.
Yeah. The end.
The end.
You got a lot more to go in.
Oh.
Yeah.
3 hours.
I'm going to be flying a different way.
Still
Within a couple days, I'm going to be signing a contract.
Nice.
It's
Advance?
yeah, it's still. They're two good problems. So I have a couple companies that have basically full sponsorship offers, and it's great because this is $10,000 worth of gear. Yeah.
Wait, that's more than the weight.
So wing, athlete, custom athlete harness, and the extra bags, you have a backup wing, so I don't get to keep the backup wing, it's a company spare, but if you destroy a wing, which the likelihood is quite high doing these stupid races, but yeah, you gotta have a backup wing.
So if your main wing is bad, could you use the backup one?
Yeah, so it depends on if that backup wing is really close. In the X-Pyr, I would have loved to. I didn't have a dedicated backup wing. In the X-Alps, you don't have to have a backup wing actually, but every team does. And it needs to be identical, same size, same manufacturer, everything has to be totally identical. But the thing is, I don't want to buy two wings. and have just absolutely great. So I might still do that, but ideally, yeah, you have a dry bag that is sitting in the bag, or sitting in the pan, and then if you're soaking wet, you just grab that outside.
Makes the hiking easier.
Save it for kilos.
My year was literally double it. Yeah, it went from 7 to
Just takes a sandbag.
14. Yeah. Maybe the training now with all the sandbags will help. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah,
Any area that you're going to avoid in the exam? You're hoping to avoid.
100%. All airspace. Aside from that, the route has yet to be announced, so we'll just have to try to see when the route's announced.
I hear it's not going back to Monaco, staying in the Alps.
Yeah, they haven't said officially, but I most likely I think it's going to be similar to last year, which is basically start in Salzburg, around Mont Blanc, and then go back to the Salzburg area. I joke about airspace, but it's a reality. The teams every single year, there's so many flights in airspace, and you get big penalties. And in the Pyrenees, airspace wasn't that bad. There wasn't a bunch of it, but in the Alps, it's everything. And sometimes it's active during some parts of the day, and other times it's not. So it's really complicated. It's probably one of my biggest fears in certain school cases, just trying to stay out of airspace. It sounds easy, but it's, somehow people always wind up in this.
Smallest infraction that they towards it. Because I'm sure I remember like they hit airspace and I was in the race.
Yeah.
2 days left.
Yeah. In previous editions, they've had a categorical elimination if you're in airspace week, like for an extended time or whatever it was. They've gone to more of like a discretion, whereas I think if you put airspace in it, you're going to get a penalty. Probably not going to be less than 6 hours, 12 hours. Probably they have a little bit of wiggle room for discretion there. Yeah, previously it just eliminated airspace. And there were times when there can be airspace, say, 200 feet AGL, and you're flying through a valley, and you're touching trees, trying to stay, say 50 or 100 feet AGL, but then your track log shows that you were 1 or 2 meters in the spot, and it's a lot more complicated than it seems. And if you're trying to thread the needle for some of these areas that you have to avoid airspace, it's you either do that and you gain a big advantage and potentially gain positions, or you don't do that, you play conservative and say it's not going to fly there, and then you get eliminated by the next one. Or just don't do it.
Maybe the really prize needs to be instead of an extra night pass, you have a 1 minute window. Forget my airspace.
That's a good idea. That is a good idea. Yeah. And during the prologue, actually, there's. I used to think it's just a prologue. You either get the night pass or you don't. Yeah. But it's actually, depending on how you place in the prologue, determines the penalty you start on day 1. So if you're last in the prologue, you have a big wait time on day 1. So,
it's not the end of the world because you can't win it on day 1, but it's still.
Yeah, it's a big one. There's a lot of rules. Highly complicated, very expensive.
Okay, James, would you like to say some few words to the last people that you're watching?
Thanks for hanging in there.
There's about 9.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for watching, everybody, and check out the West Coast Snow Club channel. There's going to be lots of stuff like this coming up, and there's some good things as well.
Bravo.
Thank you.